The beginning of the end of the war. The president's office has started talking about the finale. Budanov has outlined the scenario. There will be no other option. Ukraine will get everything. We will not give up Donbas. Zelenskyy firmly rejected any bargaining. The point of no return. Kyiv is preparing a decisive move. The negotiation storm is intensifying. The stakes are higher than ever. A historic moment. A decision that will change everything. I'll tell you all the details next. Ukraine Today welcomes you. Renata Aslanova and the latest events. We are approaching the moment when final decisions must be made to continue the war or move towards peace. Kirill Budanov has once again stunned everyone. The loud statements from the head of the office of the President of Ukraine have shaken society. The country is holding its breath waiting for the finale. The presidential chief of staff stressed the Ukraine war transcends the front lines, striking the world order's foundation.
Moscow is testing the world order and the viability of international institutions by violating the UN Charter and international treaties. This is an existential war. Russia has been waging it against Ukraine for a long time because an independent Ukraine puts an end to the Kremlin's imperial ambitions. Putin sees Ukraine as a way to restore spheres of influence of the former Soviet Union in Europe, Asia, Africa, and even on the American continent. However, Ukraine has become an obstacle to these plans.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Budanov delivered a cold and stern warning. Such wars do not disappear with the snap of a finger and do not simply vanish into thin air. Either a just and definitive peace or a prolonged pause before a new, far more destructive explosion. A half measure is an illusion and a delay is a trap. Without a clear conclusion, history will repeat itself, but with much more severe consequences.
We understand perfectly well that such wars do not end on their own. They either end with a just resolution or inevitably return again in an even larger and more dangerous form.
Budanov also confirmed that a new round of negotiations is already scheduled for the end of the week. Kyiv is simultaneously paving the way for a possible summit between Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Putin. The task is extremely difficult, the resistance is colossal, but Bankova is not backing down. Despite all the barriers, Kirill Budanov is confident that the sides can still move closer to such a format. At the same time, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy states that Ukraine wants a strong peace and that all the struggle and courage Ukraine has gone through must not be devalued. The peace agreement must be accepted by the Ukrainian people.
We want peace. A strong one, a worthy one, a lasting one. And before each round of negotiations, I give our team very clear directives. These always come as classified decrees, but I certainly won't reveal a state secret if I say this. My main message is not to nullify all these years, not to devalue all the struggle, courage, dignity, everything that Ukraine has gone through.
Zelenskyy emphasized that this cannot be given away, forgotten, or betrayed. That is precisely why Ukraine participates in every round of negotiations. It is a battle for every word, for every clause, for real security guarantees so that the agreement is strong.
History is watching us closely. The agreement must not simply be signed. It must be accepted. Accepted by Ukrainians.
The head of the presidential office, Kirill Budanov, gave a statement. The details of the negotiations are deliberately not disclosed. Making them public here could be too costly. But the general tone of the latest meetings is cautious optimism. Society will only see the outcome, and there are only two options. Either the war ends or it continues. There is no third way.
We are moving slowly, but we are moving. You will only see the ending.
The Russians did not raise election issues during the negotiations. The main thing is the territory.
Give us Donbas. This is their position.
Remarkably, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that Russia's war against Ukraine is at the beginning of the end, but called on the United States not to succumb to Russian dictator Putin's negotiating games. In an interview with the Financial Times, he stated that Putin is using the offer to President Trump to weaken Kiev's position in the negotiations. According to him, the US is convinced that Putin will end the war if Ukraine gives Donbas to Russia. However, Zelenskyy considers this idea to be short-sighted.
To be honest, I don't believe that's all Russia is demanding. Our withdrawal from Donbas, and then the war will be over. Russia is Russia, and you know it can't be trusted.
Zelenskyy warns that any ceasefire without firm guarantees is a ticking time bomb. There is no trust in Russia, and here are the key messages that were delivered in the toughest possible terms.
We will not give Donbas to Russia. Ukraine must be admitted to the EU next year. Putin is manipulating. Trump must put an end to these Russian games. Trump should put pressure on Russia, not on Ukraine. Ukraine is close to mass-producing new missiles that have breached Russia's air defenses.
Exactly 4 years ago, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with tanks, missiles, and the obsession to take it in 3 days. And what is the bottom line? Millions, 260,000 Russians sent to graves and hospitals, a sanctions noose and isolation in global geopolitics. What has the world's second army turned into, and what awaits the bunker dweller in the future? Stay tuned.
As a result, today, February 24th, 2026, exactly 4 years since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Kremlin occupation forces.
I have made the decision to conduct a special military operation.
This war has become the bloodiest and most destructive in the history of Russia and Ukraine since the end of World War II. In 4 years, the Russian Federation has lost more people than in all its wars and conflicts throughout the existence of the aggressor country combined. And with each passing year, the number of Russians killed and maimed in Ukraine only increases, while the territories seized by the Kremlin are incomparably small compared to the losses in manpower. Despite the fact that in 2025 they managed to mobilize and conscript 406,000 people into military service, their total losses, including those killed and wounded, amounted to about 418,000 soldiers. The year 2025 became the first time during the entire war when the losses of the Russian army exceeded the number of new recruits. Losses are increasing while the amount of captured territory is only decreasing. Throughout the entire past year, the Kremlin captured less than 1% of Ukraine's territory, and in just the incomplete month of February 2026, the armed forces of Ukraine have already reclaimed.
Things are not going so smoothly for the Russians. They are facing serious resistance from the armed forces of Ukraine. And they are even encountering situations where the Ukrainian armed forces, in turn, are launching offensive actions. Since February
2022, Russia has managed to inflict serious damage on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. This winter has been the coldest and darkest for Ukrainians, but it did not break them. In turn, Ukraine also carried out massive strikes on Russian energy facilities. From Belgorod to Smolensk, Russians also experienced what blackouts are like.
Oh, are we being bombed? Are we being bombed?
I don't know.
Just last year, at least 25 out of Russia's 38 largest energy facilities were damaged by Ukrainian drones. In addition, the harsh winter revealed that Russia's public utilities are in terrible condition. And all the money goes only to the war, not to repairs.
There is a monstrous underinvestment in public utilities. All our energy sectors are monstrously underinvested. So periodically, when serious accidents occur in some of these remote settlements, it suddenly turns out at that exact moment that there is an old heating plant there that hasn't been properly repaired since the Soviet times, or something else very similar to that situation.
To repair the public utilities in Russia's infrastructure, about 10 trillion rubles need to be invested. That is exactly how much the Kremlin spent on financing the war in Ukraine in 2025. Russians have also started to feel that they are the ones paying for the war in Ukraine, as prices in Russia have begun to rise monstrously. Well,
so friends, how do we start the new year 2026? With what? That's right, with... My husband went to the store. How much do you think it cost? All of this came out to 3,000. 3 grand. Did you
even see that? In the region, it's fine. They even hide chocolate in special cases now because the prices have just skyrocketed. It's already 139 rubles. People are being forced to steal.
At the end of September last year, the Russian Finance Minister Silvanov explained the increase of VAT from 20% to 22% as a measure to fight inflation. Well, and after the introduction of the new VAT, he stated directly all Russians must pay for the war in Ukraine.
We need additional spending on defense and security. Today, that's the main thing, is the main task of our country. And in order to provide the necessary resources, yes, we are also changing the value-added tax.
It will take at least 2 to 3 years to make up for those lost years that were simply taken away from the civilian sector. All resources, once again, tanks. People don't buy them, missiles, people don't buy them either. But that's exactly what's being produced. Naturally, prices are rising for what isn't being produced.
International sanctions and the ban on the sale of hydrocarbons, strikes on the oil refining industry, budget deficit, rising prices, colossal losses of the male population, as well as an increase in banditry from the so-called returning heroes of the special military operation. This is by no means a complete list of the problems that Russia has faced after attacking Ukraine. In response, starting from 2014, Russia occupied less than 20% of Ukraine's territory, becoming a global pariah.
Putin does not plan to put an end to the war. Zelenskyy stated this directly in an interview with the BBC. The president of Ukraine warns that the Kremlin needs to be stopped, not persuaded. Meanwhile, the master of the Kremlin has already completely lost his mind. In Russia, there are calls for total militarization and for preparing the country for a long war. What are the leaders of Ukraine and Russia saying, and what are the most heated statements preparing us for? More on this in the following report. In
the coming weeks, they may meet face to face. Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Vladimir Putin are preparing to sit down at the negotiating table together. We
reduced everything to a single question, and we discussed various options for resolving this issue. That means it is solvable. So if both sides want to solve this problem, we will solve it.
But the special envoy of the US President, Steve Witkoff, is clearly being disingenuous about the goals and problems. Each side in the negotiations has far more issues. Moreover, Kiev and Moscow approach the issue of a ceasefire from completely opposite perspectives. As for Volodymyr Zelenskyy, he outlined his vision for ending the hostilities in a major interview with the BBC that was released the day before.
Today, stopping Putin and not allowing him to occupy Ukraine. That is a victory for peace.
According to the Ukrainian leader, Putin will never voluntarily agree to a complete ceasefire. For the bunker dweller, a ceasefire is a forced measure, since the occupier's army has exhausted all its resources and could collapse at any moment.
I believe that Putin needs this pause. He needs this pause as well. That's true. No matter what he says, that's true. And when he recovers, our European partners say it will take 3 to 5 years. In my opinion, he will be able to recover in a couple of years, no more. So where he will go next, we don't know. But the fact that he will want to continue.
Putin himself doesn't really hide his plans to continue the so-called special military operation. Even though the man in the bunker doesn't give interviews, he does occasionally appear in front of the cameras. And at every opportunity, he reminds Russians that the war will continue. It will be long, exhausting, and increasingly bloody.
You know, when everything is calm, measured, and stable for us, we get bored, it's stagnation, we want some action. But as soon as the action starts, everyone freaks out. And seconds and bullets, unfortunately, bullets are whistling now. So we're scared. It's terrifying, terrifying. Well, it's terrifying.
And Putin doesn't even hide the fact that he's doing everything to make this terror settle in every Russian family. We
do not consider ourselves responsible for the deaths of people because we did not start this war.
Instead of focusing on peaceful negotiations, the Kremlin is pouring all state resources into the military-industrial complex.
The stable and rhythmic operation of the defense industry organization, including the fulfillment of export contracts, became possible largely thanks to timely government support measures. And
while Donald Trump is raving about yet another peace agreement with Russia, and until the summer of 2026, Moscow is actively recruiting new allies.
New opportunities are opening up to deepen military technical cooperation with countries from other regions of the world, including states on the African continent. In
the poorest African countries, Putin is counting on massively recruiting cannon fodder in the future to continue the war.
The volume of military exports, according to the plan for 2026, which we will finalize and approve today, should increase significantly.
All this indicates that the Kremlin is not just preparing for World War III. Putin has already started it. I
believe that Putin has already started it. The question is how much territory he can seize. And the question is how to stop him. Not so that Russia doesn't win. Russia wants to bring its own world and change the lives of people who are happy with the way things are.
The Russian dictator is pushing the same message openly from the podium to the masses, just wrapped in different packaging. Supposedly, there are enemies everywhere, imposing on Russians an alien way of life, centralized water supply and indoor toilets, as well as gas heating, electricity, and democracy.
Their unity was based on completely different principles. They were united by the desire for profit, the desire to snatch something from us, to conquer, destroy, and seize. And what united us was the desire to preserve everything. Our common land, our families, our culture, our traditions.
How Putin and his generals preserve land, culture, and traditions is clearly seen in the example of Ukrainian cities wiped off the face of the earth by Russian liberators.
This is very important, this is good, this must be supported.
It turns out that while Volodymyr Zelenskyy is doing everything he can to achieve real peace, Putin and his generals are doing everything possible just to keep the war going. That's why Western countries should firmly suppress the Kremlin's demands, not try to appease the bunker dweller.
Meanwhile, the President of the United States is in danger, an assassination attempt or a dangerous provocation. An unknown man broke into Trump's residence with a shotgun and a canister. America is seriously shaken. All the details, watch.
Another attempt on Trump's life. The perpetrator entered the grounds of the Mar-a-Lago residence and was shot by security. At that moment, the president was in Washington.
This morning, security personnel discovered that someone had entered the inner grounds of the residence. They went to investigate and encountered a white man who had a canister of gasoline and a shotgun with him. He was ordered to drop both items, and he dropped the canister but then picked up the shotgun and took a shooting stance. At that moment, a deputy sheriff and 2 Secret Service agents opened fire and neutralized the threat.
This is already the third assassination attempt. In 2024, a man with a rifle was apprehended while waiting for Trump near a golf course. And a few months earlier, during a campaign rally, a sniper's bullet flew past the head of the US president, grazing his ear.
There was blood everywhere, and yet in a way I felt completely safe because God was with me on my side.
All these assassination attempts are not a coincidence but a natural reaction to Trump's unpopular and eccentric actions. More and more government agencies are speaking out against his policies. The US Supreme Court ruled that Trump exceeded his authority when he imposed tariffs on imported goods. The court's decision provoked anger and hysteria in the president.
They are extremely unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. In my opinion, the court's decision was influenced by foreign interests and a political movement that is not very large.
These people are disgusting and ignorant. They make themselves heard very loudly. Some judges are afraid of this. They don't want to do the right thing.
There is active criticism of Trump in the Senate. And with such a high disapproval rating ahead of the upcoming fall elections, it is increasingly likely that the Republicans will not win a majority.
I think Donald Trump has never read the Constitution. I think he's simply unaware and doesn't know or understand that this is the foundation of our democracy. I think he doesn't understand what it means to be an American. And no one in his family has ever served in our military. Essentially, the only thing he cares about is how he can extract money from the American people, including his own supporters. I think he's an idiot who has surrounded himself with a bunch of sycophants who just want his approval.
Even the Republicans themselves are opposing Trump introducing bills that overturn his initiatives.
This law essentially recognizes and emphasizes the role we play as a NATO country, cooperating with our allies and ensuring that we do not act against them. And no funds will be spent on this. This is a very clear and straightforward message, and honestly, I never thought I would have to write it and present it in Congress.
The Gallup Research Institute, which has been evaluating presidential ratings for 88 years, will no longer measure them. Trump's rating, all because of his rapid decline. Back in December of last year, only 36% of the population supported Trump.
I don't think anyone will want to run against us. I have the best numbers of my entire career, the best poll numbers in all of history. I've just ended 8 wars and I'm about to finish the 9th.
A wave of protests has swept across the United States. In a special Senate election in the traditionally Republican state of Texas, the Democratic Party candidate won. Just as before in the New York mayoral election and in the gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey.
The Democrats will do everything possible to impeach the sitting president and kick him out of the White House. And here, the struggle is quite serious. This is not just a fight for power. It's also a fight for freedom, because Trump may believe that if he resigns from the office of President of the United States, as a result of impeachment, he could become the subject of new and, of course, old legal proceedings.
It is clear that Americans are becoming increasingly hostile toward the president whom they adored just a year ago and elected by an overwhelming majority. All that remains is to wonder how soon and with what approval rating Trump will leave the presidential office.
And what do you think about the latest events? We look forward to your comments. There's more to come.